All right, welcome in everybody to another edition of the Philly Experience podcast. My name is Max Gretzel, joined by Tyre Hood and Tanner Gill Martin, coming off a week of one team left now playing sports in Philadelphia, and that is the Philadelphia Phillies, of course, and the Sixers done, the Eagles done, Flyers, who cares? But at this point, I will say that the Philadelphia Phillies are one of those teams that we've seen the past few years keep trying to reel us back in. You know, they get hot a few games. Now have won 3 out of 4, beat
We know it's hard.
2 out of 3 against San Diego over the weekend. Of course, now they're going to play the Chicago Cubs, who have now lost 10 straight games. So we got to start with them. But guys, I also want to get into the Sixers eventually seeing Ben Simmons, of course, overseas, not in the basketball gym. A lot of people, right, are either on one side of the coin or the other side. I don't see too many people on one specific side of this argument, meaning should he be in the gym right now, just weeks after the season starts? Can't you let him enjoy his vacation? The other people say he just basically screwed us in the playoffs. He should be in the gym. So, of course, we got to mention that. T, I know you want to bring up Jalen Hurts in the Phil Simms list that came out a couple weeks ago. Of course, we got to touch on that as well. But when we talk about the Phillies right now, and of course, yeah, NBA Finals definitely. Well, Suns Bucks game one's coming up, and Giannis, we'll see if he's healthy enough to play. I think early prediction for me before we get into it, I think the Bucks, if they're all healthy, it's going to be hard to beat them. But well, let's start out with the Phillies here. I want just your overall reaction for what you've seen the last few weeks with this team. I know if we date back about 10 days ago, your opinion is going to be a hell of a lot worse with this team than what it is probably in the last few nights because of that 13-run outburst they just put up.
Yeah. So my reevaluation from the last time we did a show about the Phillies is same thing, different day. That's really it. They're an up and down team. They're really a borderline 500 team. They're playing like it too, unfortunately. I mean, we can go into it like we've been going into it about this entire season, about the defense, lack of defense thereof, and the bullpen, something that we went into the season, complaining about. And one of the things that I was worried about as well. So it's the same thing with the Phillies. It really truly is. Unfortunately, just to bring up an interesting stat for you guys in terms of their record and how this is a trend that really needs to change. So I looked it up just to confirm because I was producing for a host at WIP and he had brought this stat up and it was interesting that he said this and I didn't know this until he said it, but since September of 2011, do you guys know that the Philadelphia Phillies have never had a record over 500 since then? Since September of 2011. That's 10 years. That's going on 10 years. That's ridiculous. That needs to change. Now, understandably so, towards the end of 2011 was the rebuilding year and, them grooming the prospects and things of that nature. And we expected to struggle after, the era of Ryan Howard, Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins. We expected to struggle. But now that we're in this time where we have Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, we have, Reese Hoskins, we have all these superstars who are supposed to take us over the top. But the reality is it just hasn't happened. And that brings me to another point, which I think is very unpopular, and I'm probably going to get criticized for it. But I think Joe Girardi takes too much heat for this team and their lack of plays. Hear me out. I understand that Girardi has made some mistakes in terms of calling plays, in terms of managing the bullpen, but two things pop up. I've always said this, all right? Players play, coaches coach, all right? I will hold coaches accountable when necessary, but in terms of the Phillies and the way they play defense and the way they feel at times, that's not something you can hold the manager accountable for. That's players. You cannot attack the manager for that. That's something that as a player you have to work on. And in terms of the bullpen, look, we all know this bullpen stinks. We complain about it. We've been complaining about it for the past 3 years now. The bullpen stinks. I don't care what manager you bring in. I don't care if you bring in the best manager that's ever managed baseball. All right. There's nothing you can do to get around this sorry ass bullpen. I'm sorry. Look, I just think Joe Girardi is getting way too much heat. I really do. Every show I produce, every caller I talk to, every casual person I talk to about the Phillies, it's always Joe Girardi this, and Joe Girardi needs to be fired. I'm hearing that a whole lot more. Joe Girardi needs to be on the hot seat. When do we start looking at these players? We expected more out of these players. We're paying these players way too much money for the type of play that we're getting. All right, I'm sorry. Like we need to stop looking at Joe Girardi and start looking at the players. Players play, coaches coach. That's my position.
I'm going to go ahead and give the Phillies more credit than T just did. And I might end up kicking myself for this. But right now, Max, you mentioned they won 3 of their last 4. And 2 against that great Padres team. And that's because this team, the pieces of the squad are starting to come back together. You got Didi, came back on Friday. Hoskins, he's picking up his pace. He's got, I think it was 4 extra base hits in this last stretch of games. You got JT, Bryce, and Gene. They're back together. And this is going to be an important stretch of games because you got 3 at Wrigley and then 3 at Fenway. And if this Phillies team keeps winning and they're on a hot streak going into that All-Star break and then they win a couple after, I'm looking for that front office to make some moves. But if this Phillies team does not and they're just stinking it up before the All-Star break and they come back with no flame or anything like that, these veterans are gone. But I think the Phillies are in a good spot right now. I mean, they're 4th in the NL East, but they're only 4.5 games back from the Mets. It's still in reach. And I think if they continue playing the way that they have recently played, this is going to be a much better Phillies team than we have been used to the past, 10 years. And I mean, it kills me to be so positive about the Phillies after the games that we have witnessed this season, going into the podcast week after week, just talking the same thing about the Phillies. Hector Neris, this, who we send into the Poconos, who we send into Montana. But I don't know. I'm more positive this week about the Phillies. And I think that if they get things done at these 2 stadiums and they're going into the All-Star break on a good note, I think this Phillies team can be put together even more by some pitching and they can make a run for the playoffs.
Yeah, I will on that Brandon Kinsler note. It's great because he escaped from a cell. I mean, he must have gotten a key out of Montana, Wyoming, wherever he was, and because for some reason I saw him on the mound last night. So I guess good for him. He escaped the cell. The security guard must have fallen asleep or something. Anyway, it's funny how deep this team has. They've really dragged me way underground, and they got a stranglehold of my ankles watching this team because I'm sitting here looking at the division, like Tanner said, of course, 4.5 back in the race to catch the New York Mets. And I'm sitting here last night, I'm watching the Marlins Dodgers, hoping the Marlins lose. I'm watching the Brewers Mets, hoping the Mets lose. I'm sitting here like, wow, I'm sitting here Monday night, and this is what I'm doing. I'm rooting for the division teams to lose like that. And again, why am I doing that? Because it's crazy to think about. The Phillies continuously hurt our feelings and cause us pain. But I will say this about last night and going into the Cubs series overall, because you look at the Cubs, coming into the series, lost 9 straight games ever since I had that combined no-hitter against the Dodgers. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, 9 straight games. What is the recipe to get back on track for the Cubbies? Oh, the Phillies coming to town for 4 games. Like, lucky them. Like, this is the Phillies fans' nightmare, is facing a team lost 9 straight games, and the Cubs, who I still think on paper at least are pretty talented with Javier Baez, Anthony Rizzo, Chris Bryant, etc. But we come out last night and fire 13 runs on the board. And it's amazing when the offense scores that many runs. Look what that does to the bullpen. They were free-flowing, free and easy. Kinsler, Connor Brogdon, Alvarado. I know the bullpen's been a real disaster so far this season, but when you score runs, I guess mentally for any bullpen in the Major League Baseball, it really helps out your emotions.
I will say this as well, in terms of the bullpen. 22 blown saves this year. 22 blown saves this year by this Phillies team. We can fuss about. Can we put Hector Neris on that bus to Montana too?
Listen, I agree with you there because small sample size here, of course, just based on what we've recently seen in that San Diego Padres game. I think Joe Girardi, like you said, he's trying something different, takes him out of the closer's role. What happens? He puts him in the 6th or 7th inning, hoping to maybe increase his confidence level. And he gives up a bases clearing double to Hosmer on Sunday afternoon. And he gives up that home run to that backup catcher that the Padres were throwing out there. But I will say this about the pitching overall, because you have obviously Zach Wheeler going to Colorado for the All-Star game, well-deserved, probably the second best pitcher in baseball this year. I see Alvarado as my one question last night come in against the Cubbies in the 8th inning. And I remember Girardi saying last week that Alvarado's a new closer. So now I'm way confused because he's talking to the media saying Alvarado's a closer. I thought, wow, is he going to let Alvarado come into the game and close 2 innings here? And again, I know it was a close game because we really erupted in that 8th inning, but I'm just confused. I'm assuming because Ranger Suarez got that save on Saturday afternoon. I don't know. I'm going to guess he's the new closer because Joe Girardi, it seems like Hector Neris not the answer. Alvarado a little too inconsistent. Is Ranger Suarez, although he doesn't have maybe that 99-mile-an-hour fastball you want to see from a back end guy, he has that demeanor about him, that confidence level. Really, nothing shakes him, and maybe he could be the answer in the closer's role because at least he had a solid performance on Saturday against a pretty good Padres lineup, and he did have to face a pretty tough part of that order, if I remember, in that 9th inning. But overall, what we've seen recently with this team, and I'll flip the script to the hitting right now. One quick note before I get there. Neftali Feliz, I'm sorry. Get the hell out of here. No one wants to see you back in Philadelphia.
Wow.
Brutal.
Wow.
Now, the hitting side. I will say this. Rhys Hoskins is weird because I just want to mention this. I know he's still a fan favorite of Tanner, but he's actually had 13 of his 19 home runs on the road this year, which is pretty surprising. And the Phillies erupted for 5 home runs, albeit 2 of them off of Eric Sogard in the 8th inning, which I have no idea why he was even out there. I guess because at that point the game was out of reach, of course. But that's the second time I think he's pitched in like the last week for the Cubs. So when you got a position player pitching, twice in a week or week and a half span, you're not going too hot, as a team with as far as wins go. But offensively, you got to think to yourself, 10 days ago, T, like I started off this topic with, we were in the dumpster. I mean, we were down and out the Phils. And all of a sudden, you got to think, okay, 3 out of 4, a couple wins against the Padres. What has clicked? Why are we all of a sudden winning a few games here? And I'm looking at the team. What has changed? I'm looking at the pitching. Has any pitching really affected? No, the rotation looks fine. Okay, I'm looking at the bullpen. Okay, relatively the same names. And then I looked at the lineup, and who's back in that lineup? Didi Gregorius. So his power has really shown out early on. He had a big double over the weekend against the Padres, and then he hits that home run last night, just when the Phillies were down 2-1 and we were able to get back and tie it 2-2. And I think, the fact that we were down and able to tie it 1-1, and then we were down 2-1 and able to tie it again, I feel like that kind of gave our starters, maybe even our bullpen, a little confidence. Like what we've seen with this team is once we're down, we're down. There's no coming back. It feels like because our offense struggles to score runs. But the fact that we were able to fight and come back and scratch and claw and tie it and then erupt, I think that tells a lot about his impact on the lineup. And I was going to come on the pod today and talk about maybe it's time to move Odubel out of that leadoff spot. But you gotta admit, he comes up and he crushes that 3-run homer last night. I'm saying, okay, I'm writing down the notes here. I go, okay, Odubel, you're going to get ripped tomorrow on the podcast. And then right as I'm writing that thing down, he rips that one out to left center for that big home run. So I don't know. I think with JT having the off day in that first game in Chicago, the lineup, and again, this is my last point here on Girardi, like T mentioned, the couple things that I've had, the 2 things I guess I should say, really frustrations have boiled over with Girardi is the inconsistent lineup that he's throwing out there, albeit there is injuries, of course, to this lineup. But also, I want to say the when he takes pitchers in and out of games, I think certain situations, like I mentioned, I believe this last week, he takes pitchers out when I think they should stay in, specifically starting pitchers. And I know pitch counts get high; it's a very long season. But at the same time, if a pitcher's cruising, you don't have that bullpen that you can rely on to make sure they get key outs in key situations. So I think with the lineup, moving Rhys Hoskins to the 2-hole, now he's going to hit cleanup. No, now he's all the way down in the 6th spot. I mean, it's almost like a guessing game, and it's not something where I'm going to keep this lineup kind of set for a week or 2. It's almost like every third night, Gene's in the leadoff spot. No, Gene's hitting 2. JT, you're hitting cleanup. No, JT, now you're hitting 3rd. Bryce, you're hitting cleanup now. Now, Bryce, you're hitting 3rd. It's all sort of, I don't know if it's matchup based, depending on if it's starting pitchers, a left-hander on the mound and things like that. But I don't know. I think Didi right now, in all honesty, should be your cleanup hitter because it feels like every time in a key situation, he comes up and gets a big knock for you and driving runs. I don't know if it's bad luck that Bryce is not coming up with runners in scoring position or runners in base in general. I mean, the solo home runs that he's hit is ridiculous.
Man.
So I think I want to add, that's kind of where I want to leave it at with you guys. Like the lineup, when you look at it, and it's kind of weird because you have to, we've seen so many different lineups this year, but when you look at it, where's your head at as far as not only the leadoff spot, but also kind of that cleanup position? Because I thought it was Rhys, because he has the pop in his bat to drive and runs. But now DD looks like he's healthy. Maybe he could be your cleanup guy. I don't really know where to put, because I don't want to put Bryce in the cleanup spot. I really like Bryce third, but then you get a little confused because it's like, do I put JT second? Do I put Gene second? Do I put Gene leadoff? I mean, that's and again, I don't want to dive too deep into it because it's like at the end of the day, if the guys are going to hit, they're going to hit. If they're not, they're not. But I think the lineup has a big part of this team's success offensively.
I think the rotation in the lineup, I think that has a lot to do with trying to figure out, okay, where am I going to get the most production from these batters? Because remember, Andrew McCutchen started off the season as the number one guy.
Right.
And that obviously didn't work out. Like he was batting below 200 at one point in time. Like now all of a sudden, I think he's batting like 6th or 7th now in the lineup, and he's improved his batting. So that there's a plus there. You mentioned the injuries. Injuries is also an issue as well, because then you got to reset the rotation, because now you got to work in the backup guy and see where the backup guy, hits best. And that's really the main reason why for the shift. Like I just wish people would kind of understand that a little bit more. Like these guys didn't come in to this season and just started, hitting like crazy off bat. Like there were some struggles in the beginning of the season. So now that things are starting to become a little bit more solidified, now we're starting to get some consistency. And now, so in terms of Tanner saying positivity, I can kind of see it. And I'm glad that you mentioned your idol, Bryce Harper, in terms of his solo home runs. That's an issue. That's something that we really need to work on, because even though he does have all these solo home runs, that's the issue. And that's the main issue with this team that I've been fussing about for the past 3-4 years. It's the fact that we get runners in scoring position and we can't bring them home. That's an issue. Now, last night we were able to do that, but a lot of nights we can't do that. We leave runners in scoring position. Bryce Harper having all these solo home runs doesn't help the team. Helps him in the stats, but it doesn't help the entire team. That's an issue. Baseball is really a team sport, especially in terms of runs. So that's something that needs to be rectified. Now, does that mean Bryce Harper possibly needs to move to the power 4 spot? Could be a possibility. But like you said, that messes with the rotation again. So once again, it all goes back to Joe Girardi. And look, people need to stop attacking him. I think people need to give him a little bit more of the benefit of the doubt. Yes, everything hasn't exactly worked out the way we hoped it would, but when you're trying to figure out what works best for this team, things aren't all necessarily going to be pretty. Like I just talked about, between injuries and having to figure out where guys can hit the best, like it's been a constant struggle this season. So maybe with Didi coming back into the lineup, maybe the Phillies can start getting into a little bit of a rhythm. Hopefully, that's because I would love to have this team over 500. I would love to see some postseason baseball along with watching some football. Like I would love to have that. I honestly would, but until we figure out exactly where we can get the most production out of this expensive lineup, you're going to continue seeing these things. I'm sorry. I don't blame Joe Girardi for trying to play around with the lineup. I don't.
T, you realize you're talking to Philly fans when you say give them the benefit of the doubt. These fans are hungry for postseason baseball.
Who am I?
And they, as Phillies, the Phillies get Bryce Harper, and fans think everything's fixed. Here we go, playoff baseball time. But there's still more pieces to be moved around it. And we, as fans, have noticed that hole in pitching for the past 3 seasons that needs to be fixed. And it doesn't seem like it has been fixed. And it certainly hasn't been fixed. But for me, I think you give Didi Gregorius maybe 2 more games until cementing him in that cleanup spot. But I mean, you have Andrew McCutchen, who's just 1 home run down from Bryce Harper. And to me, I mean, there's still a lot of baseball left to be played. But I know Rhys Hoskins has been streaky. He's always a streaky type of player. He's not always on the entire season. And there's not a lot of players who are. But I think this lineup is coming together, T. I think that's why I'm the most positive, because these guys are finally healthy. You got Didi coming back after 2 months? It's been 2 months without him. And right when he comes back, it's almost like when the Phillies first signed him during that COVID season where he was just hitting a home run. He hit 3 home runs the first 4 games he played or something like that. And just the pop of his bat is well needed for this Phillies team, especially they obviously offensively, a team that has been struggling. And those pieces are starting to be together. And going back to what this front office needs to do, if you get a pitcher or two in that rotation or in the bullpen, and this team still plays like they are offensively, you've got a good team on your hands. But to say to this Phillies fan base to give the benefit of the doubt, they're tired of that. They don't want to do that. You got Joe Girardi, who came in here. You thought he would be a very solid coach, and right now you got Gabe Kapler leading the San Francisco Giants in first place throughout the league, looking like a World Series caliber team over there.
And I understand that mentality. Trust me, I do. And I sympathize with that. But at the same time, if you see that the same thing is happening and the same struggles are happening, then your attention doesn't need to go to the manager, because now it's starting to show that it's not necessarily a manager. Now you got to start looking at the players. Are these players really good enough to take this team where we envision this team going? That's where the questions really should be going, not necessarily the manager. That's just my 2 cents.
That's kind of where we have to decide if we're going to be a buyer or seller. I think our rotation for the most part, it's when you look at it on paper, it's solid. You have Wheeler, a dominant number 1, Nola, and solid 2 for the most part, even though he's inconsistent this year. Eflin, he has his ups and his downs, but recently he's been, a solid pitcher, I would say, at least a number 3. And then Velasquez, basically what you've gotten this season is what you would ask for out of a number 4 starter. And then Matt Moore last night, 4 innings, 2 runs. From a 5th starter, I would like to see him at least get to 5 innings, maybe, because his pitch count relatively wasn't that high. I think he was only at like 74 pitches when he was taken out of the game. But I think the main decision with the lineup is on the other side of the coin here is, do you leave Herrera in the leadoff spot? And if not, do you put him lower and have Gene, maybe JT, Bryce, DD, like Tanner? And again, we're kind of having a discussion here if DD should be in the cleanup spot or not, but then McCutchen 5, Hoskins 6. I mean, you really, with DD back the lineup, it's amazing how much more it gets to stretch a little bit. And I want to give a quick shout out here to Bailey Falter. I think he's come up and he's done his part in that bullpen, and especially even though we lost that game in Cincinnati, that rain out that we had to get rescheduled, he pitched very, very well. And again, he hasn't gotten too much of an opportunity this year because he came up midseason, but it's a guy out of the bullpen that I relatively would want to see more out of. And I think Eniel De Los Santos is the one name in the bullpen I think that you have to look at and say to yourself, why is he still on the team? But I guess for the most part, that's a story for another day. And on that note, I got to turn the script here and I got to talk about Ben Simmons. And see, I know you wanted to get to this, seeing him overseas, seeing him in London, or seeing him at Wimbledon, the tennis match. I think one of the big things there is, do you want to see him on the basketball court more? Or do you want to see him, give him his time to relax and then get back into it?
Okay, so let's provide a little bit of background just in case nobody knows what the heck is going on. So we all know how this season ended with the Philadelphia 76ers, with most of the blame being heaped upon one Ben Simmons. Now, the main thing, but let's just go outside the fact that he could possibly be traded and things of that nature. But the main thing we wanted from Ben Simmons was the fact of that he needed to work on his game, in particular his jump shot, because his lack thereof is what cost really the 76ers from advancing to the Eastern Conference Finals and possibly even the NBA Finals. So I understand the frustration, and we all expected Ben Simmons to just stay in the gym, basically. Now, some photos have recently came out. Apparently he's in Wimbledon in London, catching a game with a female. He's kissing her and whatnot. And look, Maya Jama is her name. And look, here's my thing. I know people expected me to just start going off, start ranting, start just going absolutely ballistic and stupid. That's not my stance. Listen, as a person, as an individual, I love vacations. Like I need my time off. I need my time to rest. Like I talk sports almost every day. between work, between here. If I come across a family member, they want to talk sports with me. Listen, there's a time where I'm tired of talking sports. So I just need to debug, and I just step away from it. I turn my phone off and I just disconnect myself from it. So I completely understand from that point of view, Ben Simmons taking a vacation and just doing other things. I completely understand that. And I don't have a problem with him doing that. Here's where the issue in lies. Ben Simmons, Philadelphia is crazy as hell, right? You do realize that Philadelphia blames you for the reason why the 76ers didn't go to the Eastern Conference Finals. Not to mention the fact that the stats back up that statement. So with all that being said, my friend, I'm going to need you to please not show yourself. Do not show yourself anywhere outside of the gym. I don't have a problem with you going on a vacation. I don't. All right. Do you? Because I completely understand. The way everybody was just hammering you at the end of the season, I understand, bruh. I understand. Do you? But don't get caught. That's my problem. That's my big beef. You got caught. You got caught outside of the gym doing something else, dating someone else. Bruh, not a good look. That's Ben, you smarter than that. Come on, man. What did Fred Fox say? That
you big dummy.
Yeah, man. That wasn't smart. That wasn't smart on your behalf, man. That really wasn't. And now you're getting crucified. And in a way, I don't feel sorry for you. Listen, you don't need to be filmed anywhere or being caught anywhere outside of a gym. You are not helping your cause at all.
Ben Simmons can't control who takes pictures of him, and he can't control the paparazzi. The only place that he could possibly go on a trip with no photography might be Mars, maybe. And I mean, wherever this guy goes, whether he's just going to Walmart to pick something up or not, he's going to get photographed, and it's going to look like he's having a day out to himself.
And you better somebody to get your food.
I'll go ahead and take the stance of an ignorant Sixers fan, diehard Sixers fan. And I'll say, what are you doing out here after the performance you just put on in the playoffs? You lost to the Atlanta Hawks, and you're out here practicing the wrong type of game instead of in the gym,
taking the wrong type
of three, hitting the free throw line and practicing and being better. Your Sixers career is on the line, and you're out here at Wimbledon. That it makes no sense to me as a ignorant Sixers fan, but let's be honest, this guy can't stay inside all day. He's got the right. His whole life is not basketball. We think it is because that's really the only time we see him is on the basketball court. And he deserves that time to himself and to do whatever he does. But for me, I think it's seeing him out. Looking like now, of course, we don't know what's going on inside his head, what he's thinking, but having the day away from basketball, that might be helpful to him. But I personally don't want to see that. I want to see that he's working on his game. He knows how bad he did, and he's doing better. But this is the publicity from this is not going to be good from Philadelphia fans, especially. And now there's going to be memes and everything like that. But I'm thinking and I'm hoping that Ben Simmons knows how terribly he played and how much he let the Sixers fan base down. But he hasn't said anything. You have Tobias Harris out here putting an essay on his Instagram page about how he's sorry. And Embiid, right after the game, he puts out something. And then it's just crickets from Ben Simmons, or he is who he is. And that's garbage. That's a garbage excuse. And as far as his playing in the playoffs, he was a garbage player in the playoffs.
I know it's hard for a 6'10" dude to be low-key. Shout out to Chris for watching this and, reacting. I know it's hard for a 6'10" dude to be low-key. But, dude, you come on, man. Come on, man. You got crucified, all right, after that series. You're going to get hung, all right? You are going to be murdered, dude. Oh, that wasn't smart. That really wasn't
I think one of the big things that I want to point to as a Ben Simmons defender throughout all these years, and I get it. The jump shot, that's what we started out with, transition to down the pipe to just what can you give me? Can you give me a mid-range? Can you give me a foul shot? It's literally gotten down to can you give me a foul shot and we'll be happy. With being a Ben Simmons defender, obviously comes a lot of hate, especially at this moment in time. I think one of the big reasons why I want Ben Simmons going at this point is his reluctance to get better. I've seen nothing about his love for Philadelphia, and that's one of the big things for me. I told you guys multiple times, there's only a handful of people that are meant and built to play in the city, not just a role player, but I'm talking about a star player. Ben Simmons isn't meant to be in Philadelphia. He can't handle it. And again, most athletes can. It's no knock to him. He just mentally can't handle it. Not only can he not handle being a star in Philadelphia, he can't handle taking criticism in Philadelphia. Now that's turned into more than criticism, probably hate. But he doesn't, first of all, he doesn't, you have to interact with the city. You have to interact. You have to be on social media. You have to be out making an appearance. You have to be out in Philadelphia for people to love you. And he never does that. Just great points brought up by you guys, Tobias, with his message, Tanner and Embiid. Again, like they understand Philadelphia. They get it. They get the hurt. Batista Eibel also. But when you look at Ben Simmons, not only is he not shouting out Philly, is he not going on social media saying he'll do better, whatever. He is out doing things, and he knows. I mean, he knows that what the reaction is going to be. That's another thing that bothers me. He knows going out in public, people are going to look at him, and he knows he's going to get pictures taken of him, filmed, whatever it may be. And it doesn't bother him at all. He shows no will to get better at his game. And I don't think he ever will at this point, to be honest with you. He might develop a little bit of a shot, maybe. I mean, listen, the kid's only 24 years old still. But I'm talking about, is he going to become, the next Jason Kidd or somebody like that we always thought he could be? I don't think so. And it's just because he's mentally weak. He's a mentally weak guy. And it's not just me speculating. I mean, it's proven. I mean, he has shown but he's the same player he was day one coming in here that he is today. The same exact player. No game of his, he's always been a good defender. He's always been, I mean, his size doesn't change. He's obviously going to be 6'10", and he hasn't grown a jump shot. He hasn't grown scoring, just score the basketball. He hasn't really shown that. And we saw the one game that always just boggles my mind is the Utah game when Embiid's out. I mean, he scores 42, 44 points. All of a sudden it's like, wow, this is Ben Simmons. He's shown even though he's not going to do it on a consistent level, he's shown the capability to do it. And then from that point on, we haven't seen anything like it. And in crunch time, he just crumbles. And that's one of the reasons why, the main reason, I guess you could say mentally, I want him out of the city of Philadelphia, because we're not going to win a championship with him on the team. And how much we've waited 4 or 5 years. I can't wait any longer to unlock him, so to speak. You got to get him out of town, send him to a place, just kind of like we did with Markelle Fultz. He's not built for Philadelphia, right? Coming in with all those expectations, number 1 overall pick. We sent him to a wasteland in Orlando where no one really watches any TV or basketball or whatever. And he's able to get a little bit better because no one cares about the Magic. Quite frankly, they're awful. And he's able to just get a lot of minutes, work his way out of his funk, play, not have any high expectations. I mean, he came into that team, maybe I'll be a bench, 6th, 7th man off the bench, play like 15 minutes a night. Then he eventually got better, turned into their starting point guard before he got hurt. But maybe if you send Ben Simmons to Sacramento for a De'Aaron Fox trade or a Buddy Hield trade, no one gives a shit about Sacramento either. I'm sorry to say it, but no one really is going to watch Ben Simmons out in Sacramento whatsoever. And maybe he'll be able to flourish there in the middle of nowhere out there. Because quite frankly, if you go to California, you're going to San Diego or Los Angeles. You're not going to Sacramento. I promise you that. So that's why I want Ben Simmons going. And it really has grown over the last few weeks. I think now it's hitting. With you guys, I think it hit more, almost immediately. With me, it didn't hit immediately, like the Sixers season's over. But then you see Giannis go down with his injury. It's like, wow, the Sixers really blew a huge chance. And I think now I'm just starting to realize that. And that's why I think my anger level is now starting to creep up a little bit higher with regard to Ben Simmons.
It hit me immediately.
Max,
go ahead.
Max, you're right about that Orlando fact about how they don't watch basketball over there, because I was in Orlando a couple days ago. I did not see one Orlando Magic piece of merchandise or anything. It was barren. I mean, they care more about Mickey Mouse than their basketball team over there. And going back to this Sixers team and the disappointment that it is, you see Giannis go down with that injury and saying, man, the Sixers did have a chance. Now, are you guys more upset that as Sixers fans that the Hawks put up a fight against the Bucks, but the Bucks still advanced and saw that opportunity that maybe if the Sixers went there, they could have beaten the Bucks? Or are you thinking maybe this Hawks team was serious and we lost as Sixers fans and the Sixers lost to a good team in the Hawks?
For me, it's a combination of both. I said going into the Hawks series that I think that the 76ers underestimated the Atlanta Hawks. And they didn't really take that series seriously. And it's a shame because if you would advance to the conference finals like everybody envisioned, all right, you would have faced the Milwaukee Bucks, and in which that's a team that you beat this season. Like you beat the series against this team. So you have the ability to beat this team. And you unfortunately you wasted an opportunity. You truly did. And then, like Max said, when Giannis went down, I got even more pissed off because now that's the biggest threat on their team. Oh my God. You don't have to deal with Giannis driving to the paint all the time because nobody on the court can stop him. So that's one less problem. Oh, you really got the main person now that you can really key in on offense is Chris Middleton. And you blew that opportunity. You blew that opportunity. And that irritates me. And like Max said,
I think on a Bucks note, real quick here, I think the Bucks are a really good team. I think one of the big things that they actually were able to do with the trade deadline was get PJ Tucker. And PJ Tucker was able to at least fight off Kevin Durant for the most part. Durant was doing his thing, but I think by game 7, Durant was almost gassed. And PJ Tucker did a great job defensively for what he could do. Obviously,
definitely
he's the best player in the world. Yeah. But then you come into that series against the Hawks, and on a Bucks note, again, they have a great team. They really do. Drew Holiday and Chris Middleton. I think their coach, the thing I like about their coach that I don't like about Doc Rivers, you look at the box scores, you see players, you have their starting 5, and then you have maybe 1 or 2 guys come off the bench. Literally, they run like a 7-man rotation, which is what I thought the Sixers should be doing this whole time. But they didn't because Doc Rivers had no idea what the hell he was doing with his rotations. And that's one of the reasons why I put a little blame on Doc Rivers. Now, on a Hawks note, the Hawks are a good team. And the Hawks have a hell of a lot better shooters than the Sixers do. Kevin Huerter, Trae Young. Quite frankly, I think that series goes 7 games with the Bucks if Trae Young does not roll his ankle on the referee's foot. Because when you look at game 6 down the stretch, all the shots Trae Young took, I think he was like 0 for 8 down the stretch in the fourth quarter. All the shots he took against the Bucks that he missed in that game 6 against the Bucks, he would make in the Sixers series. He made all the step back threes, all the floaters at the rim, kiss off the backboard, all those shots he missed. And it could be a combination of he was just gassed out. He was tired. His ankle was bothering him. And I think that was pretty obvious. That floater that he always was able to hit the pick and roll with Capella in the Sixers series, he wasn't able to have that same push off his foot. And I think that's what really affected him. Now, am I going to sit here and say that the Hawks are a better team than the Sixers? No, I'm not going to say that they're a better team. But I will say they're constructed much better than the Sixers team is constructed. And I think just on a PJ Tucker note, if PJ Tucker was acquired by the Sixers, you have Harris at the 3, Tucker at the 4, Embiid at the 5, Curry at the 2, and then point guard Ben Simmons at the 1. It's a little bit better of a rotation. I just feel like it fits well. Same thing almost with the Milwaukee Bucks. You have Giannis, kind of your do-it-all type of point guard / forward, whatever you want to call him. Holiday and Chris Middleton on your wings. You have Brook Lopez in the middle, PJ Tucker for defense. I'm almost like a 3-and-D kind of guy. I mean, when you're drawing up a basketball team on paper, that's exactly what you want. You want a 3-and-D guy. You want a big center that can, honestly, Brook Lopez being a step out and shoot 3 as well. Super impressive. I know he doesn't do it at a high rate, but he's still able to give you that if needed. And then your 3 dominant pieces, your Drew Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis. I mean, the Bucks are just a better version of the Sixers, much healthier version, a better version, less injury prone version, less mentally weak version of Ben Simmons example right there. So they're all just everything about the Bucks is kind of what the Sixers wanted to be and should have been. And they just weren't able to get over that hump this year. And I'll leave it at this. As much as I love Joel Embiid, and trust me, I love Joel Embiid. He gets this city. He's all about Philadelphia. If you want to win a championship, in my opinion, you can't have your number one option come down and dump it in the post and just go get a bucket. You can't have it if you want to win a championship, especially late in the fourth quarter. You need a guy, a guard, that can have the ball in his hands and make the decision. I'm going to go get my team a bucket right now, like Damian Lillard, or I'm going to be able to facilitate and get an open shot, an open three, maybe dribble drive and a little dish to Embiid inside. Because when you have to force the issue and get the ball to Joel Embiid in the post, either trap him and he's not able to really create because he gets it, and then it's kind of like, I got one opportunity here. And another thing I don't like about it is his unwillingness to just go up and dunk on these kids. I mean, literally, every guy he faces is younger and not as big. I mean, of course, obviously you have older players too, but I'm saying when you talk about the defensive people that have really guarded him one-on-one, Capello, Lopez, and guys like that in the Eastern Conference, he tries to be a guard almost, and he's just not. You need to get a guy that's able to get you a bucket. As much as I love Joel Embiid, if he's your number one option, I shouldn't say that. Let me rephrase that. If he's your number one option without the option of a number two that can get you a bucket, if your number two is Ben Simmons, he's not going to be able to, shoot. What you really need is if you dump it into Embiid, and not to get too detailed here, if you dump it into Embiid, have a guy that if he gets doubled, kick it right back out to him. And the guy you need to replace him with is Simmons. Get Simmons out of there, and a guy that can actually shoot. Malcolm Brogdon rumors come around, and that's kind of what I want to transition to here is the trade options. Malcolm Brogdon was an option. I've heard of the Sixers turn that down and things like that. So I'm saying for you guys, what is the limit of play as far as pieces and talent go that you say yes or no to?
So just going back to what you said, Embiid about playing guard. I agree with you with that statement. I was one of the people that said, I don't want to be playing guard. I want him being a center. I want him dominating in the paint. Unfortunately, he was forced to play guard because you had one less guard playing on the court due to Ben Simmons, but we all know that. Now, in terms of the trade, I agree with not agreeing to trade, Ben Simmons for Matthew Brogdon. That's not enough. But Brogdon doesn't move the meter for me. He really doesn't. Borderline.
He can shoot, too.
He can shoot, but I need more than a shooter. I still need, that's one thing Ben Simmons did was that he was a distributor. All right. He did make the other players on the court better. I still need that from my point guard. So Brogdon doesn't do that for me. All right. Now, a trade that did pop up, and this is very recent, this may be still within 24 hours fresh. Apparently, the Sacramento Kings are interested in possibly trading De'Aaron Fox and possibly even Buddy Hield for Ben Simmons as well. Now, De'Aaron Fox, I would entertain. Because one, I know he's a distributor, and I know he can make his teammates better due to the fact that his drive to the paint as well as his willingness to shoot. All right, he will distribute the ball as well, and with him being able to create his own shot, that also forces the defense to pay attention to him, which also leads to opening up things for other teammates as well. So De'Aaron Fox, and if you throw in Buddy Hield too, I'll take that as well. That's something I would kind of entertain, because listen, the thing of it is, people, you're not going to get a whole lot of value for Ben Simmons. You're not. He was exposed this past season. All right. And now with these recent pictures coming out, it doesn't look like he's exactly working on his game. So
and I want to ask Tanner one question here about what my statement about Joel Embiid. This is what I mean. Ben Simmons dribbles down the court, dumps it into Joel Embiid. Then what? You got four guys just standing around doing absolutely nothing, and Joel Embiid goes one-on-one. When you have a guy like a Trae Young, like a Damian Lillard, they can come down, they can shoot the three from 40 feet, they can run the pick and roll. Once you get the pick and roll in the center involved, Capella, you come off that screen, how many options do you have? You drive, you score, you floater it, you lob it to the center, coming off pick and roll, you drive, you kick to a Kevin Herter or a Deadeye Bogdanovich three-point shooter. You got like 4 or 5 different options that are just deadly. When you have Joel Embiid, I'm going to dribble down Ben Simmons, dribble. Okay, Embiid, boom, there you go. Now, what am I doing? What am I doing, T?
But the reason why is because Embiid demands that attention. Ben Simmons doesn't. You know exactly what Ben Simmons is going to do if he dribbles. It's the reason why we can't really run a pick and roll with Ben Simmons.
Right.
Because it's not going to be effective.
Because he's not going to, and he's not going to drive. He's not going to shoot it. And it's not that we saw that in the regular season, but we haven't seen it in the playoffs. And that's the big thing. With Trae Young, you can stop, you can pop, you can come off the screen. Capella a lot. How many times do we see the lob to Capella or John Collins? I mean, it happened a bunch of times. And then if that's not there, you collapse the defense with Trae Young penetrating. And then it's like, oh, wow, I got a sniper in that corner. I got a sniper in that corner. I got a sniper on that wing. All those guys, Herter and Bogdanovich, absolutely killed us from three-point range. And I guess at one point, if you're a three-point shooting team, you live by the sword, you die by the sword. But Tanner, when you look at that, I know how much love we have for Joel Embiid, but if he's your number one option and all you can do is really dump it into him and let him do his thing and just stand there and maybe oh, maybe he gets trapped and maybe he passes it. But again, late in that game, real quick before I let you go, we had that option. We dumped it into Embiid, and what did he do? He tried throwing that cross-court pass that got tipped by Bogdanovich, and he ran down and dunked it on the other end. That's just when you're a one-trick pony type of team, that's what gets you into trouble. And I get it. Tobias Harris tried to do his part, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough.
For Embiid, I think he's trying to spread the ball out more. Obviously, he sees what we see watching the games because he goes over tape. But for the center of the team to be, at most parts, the only option of scoring, that's a problem. And for this Ben Simmons trade possibility, it's more so who the Sixers now are going to give up with Ben Simmons, because Simmons' value has went down and because of the way he played in the playoffs. Now you have the possibility of teaming up Ben Simmons with either Maxey or Thibault for a trade for a decent player. And the Sixers need a player who complements Embiid. Now you have Tobias Harris, who said he was going to step up in the playoffs after that last season that he played. He stepped up stat wise, but it was more of a presence that I didn't get to see from Tobias Harris. At most points during the playoffs, I was wondering where he was, even though he was there in the stat sheet. I wasn't seeing him really outperform on the screen while watching the game. But I think the most recent trade that I've seen was a Gordon Hayward for Ben Simmons, and the Sixers also get that number 11th pick. Now, what do you guys think about that trade? You get Gordon Hayward and the 11th overall pick. Is that enough or no?
Gordon Hayward he's too injury prone. I mean, even look at him last year. He just got hurt too much down the stretch.
He did play a surprisingly good season with Charlotte, though.
He did. He had a good season with Charlotte overall. And again, he was, in that core with a group of younger guys, Terry Rozier, obviously LaMelo Ball, but I think I just need more from Ben Simmons. And the fact that I'm hearing all these rumors, like T said, with, obviously it's going to cost you a lot to get Damian Lillard, but all the names that we've talked about, probably Malcolm Brogdon, of course, Buddy Hield, CJ McCollum, all those, De'Aaron Fox, all those guys, all the names that I'm hearing, I'd rather have over Gordon Hayward. And then to only get the 11th pick back. I mean, on one note, I see your point, because you get to keep Maxey Thibault and guys like that. You really don't have to give up extra stuff, maybe even draft capital to get rid of Simmons and get a decent player back. But at the end of the day, I think honestly, in order to get a Fox or somebody like that, I would rather give up Simmons plus some in order to get that kind of talent back in return, because I do kind of want a star player back. I don't want to kind of get a decent guy.
I agree with you.
My issue is who the hell are you going to draft with that 11 overall pick? And with that 11 overall pick, I need that guy to contribute immediately, because I have championship, not just playoff, but championship aspirations. So a draft pick for me doesn't do it. I need a guy who's going to come in, who I know what his game is, and I need him to contribute immediately. I can't necessarily guarantee that with a draft pick and a prospect. I just can't.
Yeah, I'm going to be stubborn with this trade if Ben Simmons is traded, because I'm with Max here. I want that star. I want that star player. Now, I know how probably unlikely a Damian Lillard to Philadelphia would be, but I'm willing to give up a good amount of bench players for Damian Lillard to come to Philadelphia. Now, I'll keep, as a fan, of course, this is all fantasy, but I'd want to keep Tobias. You'd have Embiid there, Damian Lillard. I would give up Thibault. I would give up Thibault and draft picks. I'm not afraid of saying that. I would rather keep Maxey over Thibault.
You need to trade one of those players, either Maxey or Thibault.
The further you get into this season, or off season, I should say, is when you start to really think about things. And again, you have Maxey, who showed a lot of promise, to Thibault, still a good player. But if you had to pick one, again, that's probably the guy at this point. Just because if you get rid of Maxey and you bring in another guard, who's your backup point guard? I don't trust Shake Milton enough. That's kind of my issue. Two things here real quick. I want to get the predictions here for the Suns-Bucks finals before we touch off here. I know we got about 10 minutes left, T, and get into that Jalen Hurts conversation real fast. So let's go rapid fire here. Bucks, Suns, who you got and how many games?
I got the Suns in 6. I do. I think they're just a team of destiny. I said from the very beginning of the NBA season, look out for the Phoenix Suns. They finally got a point guard that can distribute the ball and make players better. Devin Booker is having a hell of a season, along with DeAndre Ayton, finally being the big men that they want. Suns in 6.
Hey, you stole my lightning because that's exactly what I wrote down. But you know what? I got to be different, so I'll put Suns in 7.
Yeah, cool. I'm going with the Bucks. I think if Giannis is healthy, I think the Bucks are the better team. If Giannis isn't healthy, I think the Suns win. So if I want to leave it at that, but if you had to make me choose, I'll take the Bucks in 7 because I think Giannis, even though he may miss game 1, he'll come back in the series, and even though he might not be at 100%, I think just his presence will definitely help the Bucks overall and be able to. I think they're the best team left, and I get it. I know the Suns have been great, especially offensively. They're putting up a lot of points, but with Giannis healthy, I think that makes the Bucks, just a little bit better. I'll give them. That's why I have them 7. And again, it's a toss-up, but we'll see. It should be entertaining. I don't really have a lot of vested interest in it because the Sixers are just still killing my soul. But at the end of the day, it should still be entertaining. And ridiculous. I want to end it on this, too. I want to end it on this. The Jalen Hurts. I get it. Phil Sims, Chris Sims, whatever. I mean, who cares, really? I mean, who cares what his name is because he's such an idiot. Let's let you take the lead on this one.
Brutal.
All right. So apparently Chris Sims came out with a top 40 quarterback list. I don't have an issue with many of these names on this list. I don't. Now, I didn't expect him to be on this list only because he's only played in about 4.5 games. And, you got a little small sample size. But some of the names that are on this list is absolutely ridiculous. I will say this. Starting off at number 40, Case freaking Keenum. How the hell is Case Keenum on this damn list? I'll put y'all on this list before I put Case Keenum on this list.
That's crazy.
Case freaking Keenum. 39. Justin Fields never played a snap in the NFL. Hell of a talent. I've said that. Just never played a snap in the NFL. Don't know how it's going to work out. Trey Lance is next at 38. Once again, never took a snap. That don't make no sense to me. Kellen Mond. Who the hell is Kellen Mond? Somebody tell me who the hell Kellen Mond is.
Kellen Mond went to Texas A&M. He was a very good player at Texas A&M. But he's not a starter in this league, and I think any backup quarterback on that list should not be ahead of the starting quarterback in Jalen Hurts. I'm sorry. Now, at first, I will say I thought it was a typo. Maybe he was going through the list. Oh, wow. All right. I forgot the 32nd starting quarterback in the league. But then he had that interview with Howard Eskin. He was able to clarify what his reasons were, I guess you could say. But when you looked at Case Keenum, last time he came to Philadelphia, can you guys remind me what happened?
Yeah, we kicked his ass.
Yeah. I think
brutal.
Just based on that fact alone, he should not be on the top 40 list, but nonetheless.
35, Tyrod Taylor. Okay. I'll give you that one. 34.
You're going to give him Tyrod Taylor, T. On what universe is Tyrod Taylor better than Jalen Hurts? I mean, it doesn't exist. I don't care that he's only played 4 games. If my life depended on winning the game, I'm sure as hell taking Jalen Hurts at this point over Tyrod Taylor. The experience thing is the experience thing, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. Fine. You want to say Tyrod Taylor has more experience? I think the talent here lies in the hands of Jalen Hurts, not just because he's younger, but everywhere he's gone, he's had success.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll give you that one. All right, 34, Tua. Okay. Okay. I'll give you Tua. I'll give you Tua. All right, 30, Mac Jones. Why is Mac Jones ranked this high? He's never played a damn snap. As a matter of fact,
honesty,
field general.
I'll be honest with you. The list should have stopped at Case Keenum and Kellen Mond. Those 2 guys are not better than Hurts. But again, I agree with you. We'll see about Mac Jones. We'll see what he does in the Patriots uniform.
They got Zach Wilson at number 27. So according to this list, here's the crazy part. And I just realized this. So you put Zach Wilson on this list. Where the hell is Trevor Lawrence on this list? There's no Trevor Lawrence. No, Trevor Lawrence is at 28. Wait, you got Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence. Okay, that's an issue. They got Andy Dalton at 29. Okay. I'm done with this list. I'm done.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to hear anymore. We just need to know that this list, you can't depend on Chris Sims for anything. And for Jalen Hurts, now we said we understand that 4.5 game experience, but he is now a starting quarterback. And this, to me, this should light more of a fire under Jalen Hurts to play better. I think that's the kind of guy he definitely is. He's not the kind of guy to shy away from competition. He wants to prove himself. He wants to prove that he's the man in Philly now. And I'm excited to see that.
Well, I'll tell you what, right now, we about have, a month, maybe less until training camp starts up. So, listen, if the Phillies continue to disappoint us, I think all of our attentions are going to turn to Jalen Hurts and the Eagles. We'll see, T. We shall see. I know it's going to get excited we all going to get more excited as the season nears. And we'll be here to cover it all with you guys.
Damn right.
And with that,
Right.
T, no doubt, T, we'll shut it down with that.
All right. And listen, if you guys have been listening to this episode, you can always go to philly-experience.simplecast.com. We are available on all major downloadable platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, the entire shabazz. Look, Chris Sims, do me a favor. As I once famously said, right? Shut the F up for life. All right. That's what you need to do. I don't need you evaluating no more football.
I got to start coming up with some more famous quotes for sound drops.
Yeah, you got some legendary ones. I think yours is still the funniest though.
He needs to learn how to wrap that thing up. Because that guy doesn't know what the hell he's doing. We know it's hard.
You're always on your back.
Well, what's going on, everybody?